In the 3rd century before Christ, the world trembled before a single man. A man who defied the impossible, who led an army across the frozen peaks of the Alps, who unleashed war elephants against the legions of Rome, and who carved his name into history with fire and blood. His name was Hannibal Barca. He was the nightmare of Rome, the shadow at their gates. And yet, for all his brilliance, for all his victories, he did not destroy them. Why? In 218 BCE, Hannibal Barca set out to invade Italy. His father, Hannibal Barca, had laid the foundations of a great empire, uniting the western Mediterranean under the Carthaginian flag. But Rome loomed like a colossus, hungry for conquest. So Hamilcar had raised an army, determined to strike first. Before the Romans could gather their legions, he seized the Spanish city of Saguntum, an ally of Rome. And that was the spark. The Romans, outraged by this attack, declared war on Carthage. They sent their best general, the future Scipio Africanus, to take Hispania, while Rome's other general, the great Marcus Livius, prepared to crush Hannibal in Italy, or so they thought. For Hannibal had marched his army over the Atlas Mountains, through the deserts of Spain, and across the frozen peaks of the Alps. When the Romans found him in Italy, he was a shadow of his former self, his men half frozen, his elephants dead. Yet when they met in battle, he shattered them. At Trebia, at Trasimene, and at Cannae, where 50,000 Romans fell in a single day, an entire army destroyed. Rome had never seen such devastation. The Republic staggered. Its allies wavered. And for a moment, it seemed as if the eternal city itself might fall. But Hannibal did not march on Rome. His soldiers were battered, his supplies exhausted, and the walls of Rome stood tall, bristling with defenders. So he waited, hoping Rome's allies would abandon them. But Rome held firm. Year after year, Rome refused to die. Every defeat only hardened their resolve. Every loss was answered with a new army. And slowly, the tide turned. Fabius Maximus, the tribune of Rome, burned the land around Cannae, cutting Hannibal's supplies. The Romans refused to fight Hannibal's way. They trapped him, bled him slowly, and the tables were turned. The trapper became the trapped. And far from the battlefield, Hannibal's enemies struck back. Rome sent its general Scipio Africanus to take Saguntum. Other Roman generals swept through Spain, cutting off Hannibal's sources of supply. Meanwhile, Rome built a navy, sailed to Sicily, and seized the Carthaginian strongholds there. And all the while, Hannibal's own people betrayed him. Carthage had grown rich on the war. Its merchants saw no end to it. They pressured their government to starve Hannibal of reinforcements, to leave their greatest general alone in a hostile land. 16 years he waged war in Italy, but while he fought there, Rome struck back, in Spain, in Sicily, and finally in Africa. By 204 BCE, Hannibal was recalled home to face the rising star of Rome, Scipio Africanus. And in 202 BCE, on the fields of Zama, the two greatest commanders of their age met face to face. Hannibal, the master of the ambush; Scipio, the student who had learned his lessons well. Hannibal formed his battle line, the cavalry, the infantry, the elephants. Then came the signal. Forward, the center crashed into Scipio's lines. The elephants thundered, trumpets blared, swords clashed. And slowly, inch by inch, Hannibal drove the Romans back. But at the edge of the battlefield, Scipio's cavalry struck the Carthaginians in the flank. As the cavalry fell back, the elephants panicked, trampling their own infantry, tearing their own banners. And seeing his chance, Scipio led his cavalry in a second charge. Hannibal's infantry was routed, his cavalry shattered. Carthage was crushed, its empire gone, its fleet destroyed, its people shackled with tribute. Never again would Carthage rise as a great power. Rome now stood unchallenged, master of the western Mediterranean, marching toward empire. And Hannibal? The man who had terrified Rome became a fugitive, an exile, wandering from kingdom to kingdom, offering his genius to Rome's enemies. Hunted without end, at last, cornered, he chose his fate. He raised the poison to his lips and said, "Let us free the Romans from their fear of this old man." Hannibal Barca did not destroy Rome, but his audacity shook the Republic to its core. His brilliance forced Rome to evolve, to become stronger, to become an empire, and his name endures. Not as the man who conquered Rome, but as the man who proved Rome could bleed. Rome was never an easy conquest. You know what was? Subscribing for more content. Thanks for watching.